time, throws, trying to force it in. Tennessee has got it. And we've seen those time and time again this season for Patrick Mahomes.
I think I speak for the sports world here. I am very confused about the Chiefs this year. I'm just wondering what you think needs to happen for you guys to right this ship right now.
We obviously have had so much success these last few years that I don't want to say it's came easy, but we've been able to go out there and do what we wanted to do and win football games. Well, this year, obviously, it hasn't been the same.
The Bills, the Chargers, the Ravens, the Titans. If you are going to make noise in the AFC, those are the teams you need to beat.
For us, it's about going back to work, trying to build something great that we can look at and say that was the turning point. A loss as bad as it was against Tennessee can be that moment.
This place is rather gloomy.
Why don't you lighten the mood for us while we're here?
I'll see what I can do.
got the perfect spot for the kids to see. athletic. You get it. Michigan, New Jersey.
You really were hoping that he would go in the offseason. Look, the offseason is only half over. Look, we're the midway point. And no premium for basic liability policy. Discounts not available in all states or situations. And I do think he moves his feet decently well. It's just the fact that he is, I mean, you really were hoping that he would go into the offseason. Look, the offseason is only half over. Look, we're in the midway point of the offseason. You hoped he would have added a little bit of bulk to his frame, and I'm not. If he did, like I joked with someone with the Sixers, I'm like, hey, it looks like Isaiah Joe might have added a pound or two, and then I followed up with, but I mean like a literal pound or two. You needed more from him, and that's a concern. But he's got the wingspan. He moves his feet decently well. If he can ever add a little bit of bulk, he can at least, I think, be a pass. I think he has more defensive upside than Korkmaz does, but it's a concern. But yeah, no, he made some plays with the ball in his hands. Shot 10 threes a game, made them, a lot of them tough, quick trigger shots, which you desperately need. If he can defend at a passable level, not be a complete, and look, I don't think you're ever going to give the ball to him and be like, all right, initiate our offense, because that's not really what he's going to do. But you're just always looking for the guys who make decent decisions with the ball if they ever have a closeout or a third or fourth pass in a possession to take advantage of, and I thought he did a decent job of that. He's got to get bigger, though. He's definitely got to get bigger. Yeah, no, he was up there. I mean, Paul Reed obviously had a, great statistical summer league. 17.4 points, 12 rebounds, 1.6 steals, 2.6 blocks. Very active. Probably tried to do a little bit too much at times. I think that's going to be one of the real. I think Paul Reed might frustrate Doc at times, but I do think he has enough physical abilities, enough energy. Especially with the roster construction, I think he needs to get back up 5 minutes. I think if I had to guess, they're probably going to use him more as a backup 4, which I don't agree with at all. I don't have confidence in Doc using him in his right role, which to me is, I think, as a small ball stretch 5. And I think B-Ball Paul is probably going to frustrate him because I do think the decision making, I do think the playing within his role, I think might be a challenge at times. But I think you've got to at least try it out. Proof of concept, see if it's there, because I think he showed enough talent-wise, both in his last season and in Summer League. Where, look, is it ever really pretty? No, not really. But there's enough productivity, enough activity that see if it translates. I think you have to.
Completely agree with everything you said. I'm not sure you saw this live, but you might have been in Utah, actually, having a good time outside.
I didn't see much of this. I was only there for one Sixers game. I was only there for the first Sixers game before I left. And that one I didn't spend a whole lot of time watching because, pulling back the curtain a little bit, you don't actually go to Summer League to watch much Summer League.
No. But he got interviewed, I believe it was the game that was only the second 2020 game in the history of Summer League. I think I have that right. I'm not going to go back and look it up, but it was the second time somebody has ever done something positive in Summer League, which I gotta say, that's fairly impressive. And during the halftime of that game, the sideline reporter was like, "What did you have for breakfast this morning?" And
did he that's like early?
Yeah, well, he said, "I went to Denny's. He might have had like a Grand Slam breakfast or something like that." But he said, "Yeah, I had some Denny's this morning," and some good advertising for Denny's there. I mean, that is just like, as somebody who has done a story on Paul Reed, that is the classic B-ball Paul, just like very funny, just just kind of like a no nonsense, get to the point guy, but also somebody who seems to enjoy himself, as he's putting up these massive numbers. I don't think that was a surprise to me at all. The idea that he can put up these just huge stat lines against G League / Summer League competition, that's done. You put him in that environment for the rest of his career, he's going to go crazy in terms of the numbers he puts up.
Yeah, now we'll see if he can do that in a system. I do think some of the energy that he plays with can become sort of like his own worst enemy, where he might, like some of the drives he was trying to do, some of the dribbles, like Paul Reed should never dribble the ball 7 times in possession. We saw that a couple times there in Vegas. And I think that kind of stuff, it's a lot of the same energy level that brings out a lot of his good qualities, but he's got to rein that in as well. And we'll see if he can do that.
Well, and it provided a good contrast with Isaiah Joe, because Isaiah Joe, we talked about, they put him in pick and roll sometimes. Some of that was out of necessity because Maxey left after the second game. But Summer League for him, part of it is just like taking him out of his comfort zone and seeing what else he can do. You know, and if he screws up, who cares? Because it's Summer League, and at least you tried, and you know it's a good place to learn something about your players without actually suffering the consequences of like losing games that matter. For Paul Reed, he's in a different spot though. We know that when he is given free reign in a huge part of the offense, he's going to put up these gigantic numbers. The problem is he's not good enough to do that at the NBA level. Like, he's not going to be a number one option in the NBA. So for him, it's almost like, you know he's going to put up these huge point, rebound, block, steal. He does everything. These numbers. You want to see him, like, do small stuff because that's what's going to be required of him as a backup center. You know, is he getting the ball side to side quickly, keeping the offense moving? Is he staying in a decent enough stance and not getting beat defensively in pick and roll coverages? Little things like that are going to determine whether he plays or not. And when you talk about him potentially driving Doc crazy, which, by the way, I think he probably did drive him a little bit crazy last year. And I think to the point where Doc was like, we're not even thinking about putting him in the rotation. But he probably should have put a little more thought into that. Yeah. So those are the things he needs to get better at. They really need to give him a shot at 5. I completely agree with you, too. As a 4, he's like, you know, he's a decent shooter, but it's like good enough. It's almost it's the Al Horford thing. Yeah. Al Horford picking and popping at the 5, that's a tough thing to guard. You know, a center, you know, Embiid running out to try and contest that B-ball Paul shot. He can pump fake and put it on the floor and beat a lot of traditional centers in the NBA. When that turns into a 4 spot-up shooting, kind of on the wing, it's a completely different thing. You know, if Paul Reed in past years is playing the Al Horford when Ben Simmons is the only one of the 2 Sixers All-Stars in the game, playing that trail 5 position, I think he would be pretty good at that. I am not as interested in him playing the 4. You know, and part of it is how he holds up defensively. You need to build a scheme probably differently than you do for an Embiid or an Andre Drummond. That's for sure. But you know, I know a lot of Sixers fans are a little skeptical of Doc giving him a chance this season. They better give him a chance because it was a big reason why. Look, Ben Simmons was the biggest reason they lost to the Hawks last year, but part of the reason was they didn't have another way to play. And I think with Paul Reed, you at least have the pathway of another way to play sometimes. So give it a shot. If you lose a game or 2, it's fine. Give it an actual chance.
And also, it's not like you have a backup 5 who has Paul Reed's skill set and has experience. You didn't prioritize getting that. So yeah, I agree. See what you have. Just early in the season, see what you have. I mean, Maxey, I don't really know how much we have to really talk about him. He was, like you said, too good for Summer League. What you're looking for is that pull-up 3 off the dribble. And he tried. I think he shot 14 threes in 2 games. Shot 4 for 14. A couple of them looked comfortable. Looked more comfortable than he did 12 months ago, at least. So I think that is good progress. That will be to steal a Rich Hoffman, a swing skill. Other than that, he looked pretty good at almost everything. He's a real good player. He's a real good young player. And he's really what the Sixers need. I think a lot of people are going to be wondering whether or not he could crack the rotation or the starting lineup even if they don't make a trade. I think Doc probably comes back and runs back to the same starting 5 if Ben Simmons is still on the roster when the season starts, but he will have plenty of minutes as a 6-man. I don't worry about that at all.
I certainly don't think Doc is going to, as much as Paul Reed might drive him crazy, I think Maxey has graduated out of the, you know, Doc will punish you for being a young player who makes a stupid mistake.
Yeah, he should be in the rotation, right? Job. I mean, a consistent part of the rotation.
The one thing I thought was a little, you know, his kick, like the kicks he has on his jumper, like his feet sometimes are all over the place on those pull-up 3s. But that's a critical shot, and you know, despite having the weird kick, I would say, you know, it happens. A lot of it happens after he releases the ball, so I'm not like as concerned about it. I'm not as concerned about it as you know, like Ben Simmons shooting on the way down, or having his elbow in a weird spot, but it is noticeable and probably something worth mentioning. But yeah, I think he has a really good chance to be six-man, and like a clear six-man too.
Maxey is clearly shooting with the right hand, so that is a start. And Springer, I think, I thought his defense tracked real well. Came out, fought through screens real well, played real good man-to-man defense. I thought his defense is playable right from the jump. First 4 games, he really struggled offensively. Really looked like he is just not quite ready to really contribute at all. The jumper didn't look good.
He was way short of a lot of those jumpers. Way short.
They had him playing a lot of off-ball. He didn't look fully comfortable. Even when he did have the ball, he didn't look like he was getting to his spots quite as easily. I think there's going to be an adjustment period there for him, especially as we wait for that jumper to extend. He did have a nice final game. I think he showed some of his potential down the line, but I think his offense might keep him out of rotation at the start of his NBA career. But his defense looks very legit.
Not the most advanced handle in the world from what I saw in Vegas. Maybe it was a little bit better in Tennessee, although that's something that I think you can kind of watch and see where he's at. Certainly not getting the separation against NBA players. Yeah, definitely some good moments defensively, some good off-ball cutting. I would just say he should probably get some easy pass though for this year, because I think he's going to be a dumbware a little bit.
Yeah. I think. Like you said, the combination of not having a reliable shot, which is going to give him easy closeouts to attack, and not also having the greatest handle or really the greatest burst with his first step. He's going to have to, I think there's going to be an adjustment period for him. Against NBA defenses, I think he's going to spend a lot of time in the G League, and quite frankly, the Sixers have enough depth right now where they don't need him day one. It would be great to have him, like that on-ball defense you could certainly use, but you're not going to do that if you're putting another 0 offensively out on the court, and I think the early part of his NBA career is going to be tough offensively.
Sure. And we just talked about it with Joe. He, somebody who looks like, he's probably 3 or 4 years older than Jaden Springer, and has shown that he has the 3-point shot, which is a critical skill for this team, and just looks a lot closer to contributing. He's going to have a tough time cracking the rotation. So. Yeah, Jaden Springer is gonna take a little while for a bunch of different reasons, I think.
All right, so staff changes. There were Keith Pompey originally reported up to 17, which is an interesting way of phrasing that. Up to, I think Tom West then of Liberty Ballers said it was less than 17. But a number of staff changes. I think probably the most notable from a fan's perspective. First of all, Scott Rigo. And then also the GM of the G League, Matt Lilley, and then also a bunch of changes to the scouting department. Originally, it was reported as a cost-cutting measure. There has been some pushback to that. I think the most interesting one of this is also the least relevant in terms of Scott Rigo, the equipment manager. Scott is someone who, if you have covered the team, then you have talked to Scott, and if you have talked to Scott, then you like Scott. He's been with the team for 34 years in various capacities. Pretty much the only job he's ever had. He came out, I think, right out of school. And just a really great guy. It really surprised me to see him not be brought back. I don't know the full story of that. It's hard for me to believe that he did something really wrong, per se. That one flummoxes me a little bit. The rest of it, I think when Daryl Morey comes in, and he came in the way he did, last fall, pretty much right before the draft, you knew they weren't going to make any changes to the front office, to the scouting staff. In the literal, days before the draft, it made sense for Daryl to give the staff that he was inheriting some time to sort of showcase themselves and to make evaluations of them rather than making wholesale changes right from the jump. It also makes... Look, here's what I'll say. First of all, I don't think it's a pure cost-cutting move. I don't... the Sixers... And look, I don't want to, really be pro-ownership, because I think they'd make a lot of mistakes. But I don't think ownership is going to spend a combined $23 million on Doc Rivers and Daryl Morey and then be like, well, we can't afford Matt Lilley. I just don't think that's going to be their mindset to this. I think Josh Harris, say what you want about him, is smart enough to know that if he has a good, well-functioning scouting staff, he will make a return on that investment by a significant margin.
Like, you need that to be a good team. If you're a good team, his franchise will make more money. I don't think they're going to cheap out on Matt Lilly's contract.
To my tastes.
Might there be some instances where maybe they think, all right, well, this guy's maybe been team long enough, and maybe he's sort of like Peter principled, where he's been promoted so much, making so much that he's not worth that money. Maybe he could be upgraded for cheaper. Maybe there might be an instance or two of that, but I think by and large, I don't think they're going to be like, well, we're spending too much on scouting. Let's cut the scouting department in half. And look, if that ends up being the case, I will rep Josh Harris as much as it needs to happen. I just don't think that's what's going on here. I think this is much more Daryl Morey getting a chance to evaluate his scouting staff, make changes he thinks that are going to help the team. I don't think you're looking at it like, we're going to slash the scouting department. I think everyone involved is smart enough not to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, and the other thing too is, a lot of these, like, you're gonna need an equipment manager next.
Right.
Like,
And again, maybe Scott, and I'm just speculating here. Nobody's told me what happened with Scott, but maybe Scott's been with the team so long and got raises, and maybe they think, well, he's making 50% more than a typical equipment manager. Maybe that's why. That's, again, just speculation. I could see that being within the realm of possibility. What I can't see being within the realm of possibility is Josh Harris saying, like, gosh, we're spending so much money on scouting, let's cut this in half. I just don't think that's...
and I think, in fairness to them, in terms of their operations staff, they might have the biggest operations staff in the league.
Yeah.
I don't know, but like, just please take a look at the front office directory for some other teams. It's not as long as the Sounders.
Under Colangelo and under even after that with Elton Brand, a lot of that driven by Alex Rucker, they expanded the size of their basketball operations significantly. And again, I feel almost awkward sticking up for Josh Harris here.
But look, and we'll see. We'll see. They have said that they will announce what their changes are. I think it is noteworthy that despite the fact that it makes complete sense that Daryl Morey would want to bring in his people, because that's what literally every new GM does, and that last year provided a unique set of circumstances where it made sense to maybe, all right, let's we can't have too much change in the middle of a pandemic in the shortest offseason ever. Let's see what's happening. But it is noteworthy to say that while they didn't cut the top of their scouting staff, they've done a decent job in the draft over the past 3 years.
Yeah, no, that was sort of where I was going to eventually, is that I don't really have a concern that Josh Harris is going to say, like, scouting overrated, let's cut it. My concern is that you're taking an organization, or a part of the organization that was the strongest, and you're making changes to it. Now look,
they know who was responsible for those picks and what the processes are.
There's so many people involved in that. You don't know whose opinion. Like, we look at it, we say the scouting department did well, they drafted well. We don't know what everyone's opinion was. We don't know how hard they worked. We don't know the methodology they used to arrive at those opinions. Just because the department did well does not mean you can't change the department. So yeah, I think this is one instance where, first of all, I don't think it is Josh Harris cutting costs. But also, this is one instance where I have to give Daryl Morey a little bit of leeway, just because we don't know each individual member of that scouting staff, what they were responsible for, and which ones were pulling their weight and really responsible for the decisions that we see as an end result. So, yeah.
If they do not have a scouting staff in 2 months, damn, we can change our tune.
100%. If I am wrong about this cost-cutting thing, I will rip Josh Harris until he rectifies that. And quite frankly, I'll rip him more because you are making decisions that impact the basketball team.
But
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I think you just look at the context. I mean, they have spent a lot in recent years. I mean, they are a tax team. They just spent $2 million on Charles Bassey, that pick, which is a lot of money for Charles Bassey, if we're being honest.
I get that the decision over the salaries last year with the pandemic is on everyone's mind, and it should be. That was a horrific decision. But outside of that, they have committed resources to this team. And like I said, I just don't think a ownership group that thought, hey, let's give Morey and Doc Rivers $23 million is then going to be like, that Matt Lilly contract. I don't think. I think Josh is smart enough to know that investing in the scouting department will help his bottom line. And if I give Josh one credit, it's that I think he is a businessman. All right, Ben Simmons.
Not by a long shot.
He had Chris Johnson, his trainer, posted a video of him splitting a double team on the perimeter. How many point guards can do that? It was captioned with. He then had a video, which included Tyrese Maxey, because Tyrese is trained by Chris Johnson as well, where Ben made a couple of jump shots, made a fancy pass in transition. Rich Hoffman, your thoughts?
I don't want to talk about it.
And that will conclude our Ben Simmons segment. Yeah, look, who cares? He's still shooting with the same form. He's still making shots shirtless, and a pickup game has never been his problem. Will not convince me much of anything. I do think.
Also, by the way, the one part of the first video with the guy going over the screen at the 3-point line was look.
It never happens in the game.
It doesn't happen.
That's part of our point. Like, get anyone to defend him that far from the basket, and he'll open up the world to him.
All right, I'm done. I don't want to talk about it.
That's about all the attention we should give it. But people would have wondered why we didn't bring it up. So there. He made some jump shots in a scrimmage game and only released the videos that we saw. So good on him. Look, he should be working. I'm just, fool me 15 times and shame on me. Anything else?
No, I think that's about it to wrap up an action-packed week.
Sounds good. Thank you for jumping on, Rich, and we will talk to you soon.
See you, man.
I love sports betting. Now, admittingly, I am just getting started. This episode is brought to you terms and conditions. In Nevada.
Already an Athletic subscriber, head on over to theathletic.com/SixersBeat. We can get a 50% discount on a yearly subscription to read Rich and my written work. Enjoy the podcast. All right, welcome everybody. This is Derek Bodner, joined once again by Rich Hoffman, the well-rested Rich Hoffman, on the Sixers Beat, a part of the Athletics Podcast Network. How you doing, Rich? Welcome back.
I'm great, man. It's it hasn't been a long off season. I feel like we have basketball coming up, but at least I got a few weeks of vacation. Nothing happened, right?
No, nothing at all happened. It is a shorter off season, shortened by about a month. We'll be back on a normal schedule after the season, so that will be nice. But not just your typical late August, early September dead period of the. No, that's not what happened. I guess real quick, it's been a little bit since we did one of these podcasts. Obviously, the Ben Simmons news has come in. Since that happened, I did want to mention one thing real quick. I am taking part in the Bark in the Park 5K for the Providence Animal Shelter. If that sounds familiar, it's the one that Spike Eskin does every year. And yes, there's a reason for that. So I guess real quick, if you could donate, go to bit.ly/DerekHatesRunning, all lowercase, goes to a good cause, and that is the primary reason I'm taking part in that. There's a little bit in that, we're losing, basically the group that I play basketball with, we haven't had indoor basketball since COVID, so as the weather gets worse, we're going to lose our outdoor, so this maybe will replace some of that cardio I get, but there's also a small part, and look, the main reason I'm doing this is to raise money for a good cause, for Providence Animal Shelter. There's a small part where maybe if I take part on Spike's home turf and what Spike is comfortable doing. And look, I know Spike has physical ailments that make playing basketball tough, but if I enter his comfort zone, maybe somebody on that podcast will have the courage to pick up a basketball. There's a small part that hopes that somebody on that podcast will just take a jump. That's all I'm saying. That's all. So go donate. Take part in that, sponsor me, because look, Spike's gonna whoop my ass, and I hate him. I've never been a good distance runner. I've never enjoyed distance running. I get bored, so I go train for it. I've never been good at it. I'm going to get crushed by Spike. I know this going in. But like I said, hopefully maybe one of them will have the courage to pick up the basketball and just fulfill the challenge that they made all those months ago. So go bit.ly/DerekHatesRunning, all over this.
Wow. All right. Well, I didn't know you were in on that.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. So, like I said, there's a part of me that, I've been trying to be a lot more active. My cardio has pretty much been two days a week playing basketball, 2 days a week biking. I'm gonna lose basketball, so my hope is that maybe I can get sort of like I said, I've always hated distance running, maybe forcing myself to compete in this. By the time winter comes around, I'll actually enjoy it, and I can do that through the winter and keep, not put on the pounds over the winter. Because I'll tell you what, Rich, I went to Vegas, and then I did the drive back, and somehow I gained 7 pounds in 2 weeks. And I say somehow, like it's a mystery. I recently did my, my expense report for that trip. I know very damn well how I gained.
Sure is good to be back in the pleasant climes of Menancia. Especially after the extremes of some of the other regions we visited.
Definitely. Your country is beautiful. You do me an honor. However, this place was never mine to own. I didn't mean it that way. Though, I guess technically you weren't born here either. Native or not, that doesn't change the feelings you had for the place. If I were you, I'd try to take a little pride in people's compliments. Allow myself to feel pride, huh? That sounds like no easy task.
Nothing sounds easy when you overthink things the way you do. It must be exhausting.
He's always worrying about something. It's probably what gives him his eye for detail. That's just the way he is.
Yeah, so we'd noticed.
Let's change the subject, shall we? It's a wonder so many things coincided to bring us here. Alphen's awakening, Shion's decision to revolt, the Danon uprising in Calaglia, the Crown Contest's final, sputtering throws. Zephyr's being in the right place at the right time. The fact that you happened to be a lord just as this was all going on.
It's almost as if we were brought together by design. By someone who wanted to bring down the system.
No, enough Hand of Destiny talk. We did this on our own steam. It's our responsibility to see it through.
Did Law just utter a pearl of wisdom?
I do think about things, Just what do you take me for exactly?
Honestly, I always sort of pegged you as a likable dolt.
What the hell makes me a dolt, you dolt?
I mean, she did say he was a likable dolt, didn't she?
Let's refrain from poking this particular Zoogle any further. Some lessons just can't be taught.
Not to dolts, anyway.
Hey, Kisara. What's your secret for putting up with Dohalim? I don't know how you managed to deal with him.
Secret? Oh, I don't think it's as difficult as all that, really.
Could have had me fooled. Anyone who waxes lyrical on the aesthetic qualities of cactus thorns is a step too far for me.
And those poetic flourishes he sneaks into regular conversation? How am I supposed to react?
He likes the sound of his own voice, that's for sure. I say let him have his fun. No need to try and understand anything he says.
Has he always been like that?
He didn't seem as on edge all the time back in Menancia. Though he was my superior back then. So who's to say what I didn't see?
The Lord of Cislodia hid in plain sight while a crony posing as him carried out all his business. What if the Lord we met in Vicente was really...
An imposter? Dohalim? Hardly. Like it or not, that's him all right. In all his flamboyant, circumloquacious glory.
I'd like to see someone try to impersonate that on a daily basis.
Come to think of it, what with being a lord and all, he's probably never had anyone to speak to on an equal basis.
It wouldn't surprise me. Having you guys around, having a family in a way, must be what's helped him change.
A little heads up on some of his eccentricities would have been nice.
It's those eccentricities that make him who he is.
Have you guys checked your equipment lately?
Why are you staring at me?
I could ask the same thing.
So this is how the Sovereign and Maiden are supposed to look. You two go great together.
Law, come stand between us.
Oh, sure. You want me to put something white on as well?
Of course she doesn't.
Take a closer look, Xion. It's a miracle.
What are you talking about?
This outfit, it's already got blue accents on it.
So I see.
I love how much amazing food we get to eat, even when we're out on the road.
Me too. Especially compared to what I used to have when I was still a slave. This is paradise.
It's amazing what good food can do to keep your hopes up. Nagal used to say all the time that the power of food is subtle, yet profound.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? For whatever reason, I find I don't worry nearly as much when I've got a full stomach helping me out.
That's why you shouldn't be such a picky eater.
Huh?
She's right. You always leave food that you don't like on your plate when you're done.
Come on, what's the big deal?
Back in the day, I couldn't think about leaving any food. It was such a waste not to eat at all. You needed every last scrap of energy.
Exactly. Even when my brother and I didn't have much to eat, we all did what we could to make it taste good and enjoy what we had.
That definitely explains a lot about why you cook the way you do, Kisara.
Dohalim, I bet you don't know what any of that's like. You must be used to food being handed to you on a silver platter.
Sometimes it was gold. You didn't shy away from that at all. Although, there was one experience that does come to mind. Oh? When I first learned that the food I ate originally came from animals and fish, I was rather taken aback.
You just ate whatever was in front of you without even thinking about it?
That's a silver spoon elite for you.
Your cooking has really improved, Xion.
It's because of you that I understand what makes it so fun. I'm glad everyone seems to enjoy what I make too.
I've noticed a disturbing trend that after it's your turn to cook, our ingredients tend to run really low. What's up with that?
That is a good point, Law. There's a weird difference between the amount of ingredients she prepares and how much food actually gets served. Curious. Very curious indeed.
I don't know. Isn't it pretty normal for veggies to shrink a little when you fry them up?
Or maybe she eats all the bad batches herself so we won't notice.
Come on, I wouldn't do anything like that.
Then how would you explain the difference?
I have a theory that I wish to propose.
What is it?
As we all know, Xion here can have quite the appetite. I imagine she often taste tests her own food as she prepares it. By my eye, it would appear that her footprints are leaving deeper impressions as of late. Far be it from me to level such an accusation, but the facts lead me to conclude that
she's been snacking while she cooks.
And yet, she still looks so slender in her clothing.
Yeah, I'm kind of envious, actually.
Wait a sec, are you guys trying to say she's...
I'm what?
Nothing?
Nothing.
Hey, Alvin, why do you like spicy food so much anyway?
You know, I haven't thought about that before. Maybe because when I couldn't feel pain, it gave me that kick I was craving.
But now that you can feel pain again, wouldn't your tastes have changed?
Did you like spicy food when you were younger?
Not as much as I do now. At some point, it just became something almost like an addiction, I guess. I can most certainly relate. Once you've had your fill of ordinary food, you cannot help but seek out more unusual fare.
I don't think that's got anything to do with Alphen's tastes. Although I won't deny that you definitely have a thing for exotic food. The stranger, the better.
I just wish I could have gotten you into sweets like me, Alvin.
I like food that's dense and keeps you feeling full myself. It helps you last longer when you're on the move.
We all know you're a quantity over quality kind of.
What was that?
Nothing. I lost my train of thought.
You know, I've also noticed Shion's not really into the same kind of food most Renans are. Could be it's got something to do with the way she grew up.
That's so me. Even when I was little, I was all about food that gives me strength. All meat, all the time.
And I guess Kisara is so good at cooking fish because she can catch them herself.
I'm only good with fish because it used to be the easiest thing to get. When you work with something long enough, it comes naturally to you.
I like fish just fine. But what I really like about your cooking is how it tastes homemade. It reminds me of what my mom used to make.
Really? You know, I used to cook a lot of meals for younger kids, and they said the same thing.
When you get down to it, I guess the things a person cooks and the foods they like say a lot about the way they've lived.
This looks perfect. Guaranteed to hit the spot.
Kisara, let's talk for a bit. So, Kisara, once this fight is all over, I'm guessing you plan on heading back to Viscent?
Yeah. I've seen and learned so much traveling Dano with you all. I want to see those lessons applied back home. Hopefully I can use that knowledge to help reform Menancia even further, so it can be a model to other realms. What about you, Alphen? What's your plan?
That's a good question. I think I would be happy just to be able to put my fighting days behind me and live a calmer, more peaceful life. Granted, all I've ever known is how to swing a sword. I'm not sure that switch will be so easy. Still, as long as I have somewhere to come home to, somewhere with a roof and 4 walls without any holes in them, that'll be good enough for me. It would be a home with enough food to make sure I don't go hungry, and a warm bed at night so I don't freeze. It wouldn't have to be anything fancy.
You've always been modest like that. But you're forgetting something else that makes a home. Family. What if you and Shion...
I hate to make this conversation all about me. Is there anything you want for yourself once things are over?
For myself? I've never really thought about it. Well, there is one thing I can think of. I don't know if I should say it, though.
Yeah?
I want a fishing pond.
Really?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for a while now. I love fishing.